Scandal in Dalton. Mayor Tiffany Henyard's fall from grace, once hailed as a trailblazing political force. Mayor Tiffany Henyard now finds herself at the center of a federal scandal that has rocked the small town of Dalton, Georgia. A community that once held promise and pride is now drowning in financial ruin, following shocking revelations of corruption, misuse of public funds, and abuse of power. Henyard, once considered untouchable, is facing serious legal consequences as a sweeping federal investigation exposes the full scope of her mismanagement and extravagant lifestyle. Funded almost entirely by taxpayers, the scandal erupted following a dramatic FBI raid that uncovered a troubling pattern of financial misconduct. What investigators found painted a grim picture of years-long corruption. Once enjoying a healthy $5.6 million surplus, the town is now grappling with staggering $36 million deficit, much of it tied directly to Henyard's administration. Federal documents allege that Henyard treated the town's coffers like her personal piggy bank, funding everything from luxury travel and premium flights to personal glam squads, all under the guise of official mayoral expenses. Among the most outrageous expenditures was a $7,700 shopping spree in 2023, spread across retailers like Target, Walgreens, and Wayfair. The spending spree, initially dismissed by her office as routine purchases, raised red flags due to its frequency and lavish nature. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Records show Henyard consistently opted for first-class airfare and five-star accommodations while traveling, ignoring budget-conscious alternatives. Even as the town's finances crumbled beneath her, equally shocking was a revelation that Henyard authorized a $561,000 project to pave the driveway of her own mother's home. The gross misuse of public funds infuriated Dalton residents, many of whom were already struggling as local programs faced budget cuts. The scandal deepened when it came to light that Henyard had assigned members of the town's police force as her personal security detail, leaving the community more vulnerable to crime amid a rise in public safety. Concerns the situation took a dramatic turn when whistleblower and former police chief Carmen Carroll stepped forward with damning evidence. Carroll, who had watched in silence for years as Henyard's power grew unchecked, made the courageous decision to cooperate with federal authorities. She provided the FBI with a trove of receipts, emails, and internal documents that outlined a systemic pattern of corruption and reckless financial decisions. Carroll's testimony proved to be the catalyst that launched a full-scale federal investigation. The documents she handed over included details about an infamous taxpayer-funded event hosted by Henyard, a $555,000 celebration that featured a lineup of high-profile performers, including artists Wyatt and Jay Holiday, who were paid $30,000 and $20,000 respectively for brief appearances. Shockingly, the party was thrown after Henyard had already had her city-issued credit card revoked for prior abuse despite the town's crumbling financial state. The event spared no expense. In addition to musical performances, another $36,000 went towards sound systems, comedians, event staff, equipment rentals, and even inflatable bouncy houses. With only about 70 guests in attendance, the lavish affair was seen by many as a self-promotional stunt that exemplified the mayor's disregard for fiscal responsibility. Local activists called the event a slap in the face to residents who had watched their community decline under Henyard's leadership. Former trustee Valeria Stubbs was among the first officials to publicly condemn the spending, labeling it an egregious abuse of power. This wasn't just careless. It was a willful and arrogant use of public money for personal gain, Stubbs said. The anger was echoed by local residents, including Jennifer Roberts, who shared, "We put our faith in her, and she destroyed this town. Now we're the ones left to clean up the mess." Despite the growing outrage and mounting legal trouble, Henyard has remained defiant. Publicly, she maintains her innocence and continues to project an image of normalcy, as if her position grants her immunity. Behind the scenes, however, the pressure is mounting. Legal analysts predict Henyard could face up to 25 years in federal prison if convicted on the 22 charges currently filed against her, including misappropriation of funds, wire fraud, and concealment of public assets. The investigation has now widened to include her business ventures, campaign finances, and close political allies, some of whom are suspected of aiding or benefiting from her alleged misconduct. Sources close to the investigation suggest several individuals within her inner circle may soon face charges of their own. Rumors of potential co-conspirators have only intensified public suspicion and further eroded trust in local government. As news of the scandal spreads, Henyard's case has gained national attention. Advocacy groups, political watchdogs, and analysts are pointing to Dalton as a cautionary tale about unchecked power in small-town politics. The story of Tiffany Henyard has become symbolic of a broader issue: how local leaders, once elevated by trust, can exploit their positions in devastating ways. The fallout from her actions has left Dalton in a state of disarray. Schools, public works, and social services are all struggling to stay afloat. Local businesses report dwindling support and increased pressure as confidence in the town's governance collapses. Town Hall, once a proud emblem of Dalton civic life, now sits largely deserted. A hollow symbol of promises betrayed. The damage left in Henyard's wake is more than financial. It's emotional and deeply personal for the people of Dalton. Residents who once proudly supported their mayor now feel betrayed and abandoned. Restoring that trust won't be easy. Community leaders have already begun drafting plans for financial recovery and structural reforms, but many acknowledge that the road ahead will be long and uncertain as the federal probe deepens and more information comes to light. Henyard's once glittering political future appears all but destroyed. While she may have once imagined herself as an unshakable force in local politics, her downfall is now etched into Dalton's history as a sobering reminder of what happens when power is abused and accountability is ignored. The town is now left to pick up the pieces. A new leadership effort is emerging, one focused on transparency, fiscal responsibility, and community healing. For the people of Dalton, hope still lingers that they can reclaim their town's future from the shadows of corruption. But they know that the scars of Henyard's tenure will not soon fade. Tiffany Henyard's story is far from over. As federal agents continue their probe and legal proceedings inch closer, the nation watches closely, not only to see justice served, but to understand how a town and its people can rebuild from the wreckage left behind the fall of Tiffany Henyard. From power prosecution, once a symbol of power and ambition, Mayor Tiffany Henyard is now a name synonymous with scandal, betrayal, and corruption in Dalton, Georgia. As the town wrestles with a financial crisis and a staggering $36 million deficit, Henyard has become the face of a collapse that has left residents disillusioned and furious. While Dalton's infrastructure crumbled and public services were slashed, Henyard appeared increasingly disconnected from the harsh realities her constituents were facing. Her extravagant lifestyle remained untouched, her public appearances carefully curated, and her glamorous persona intact, giving the impression that she was immune to the fallout unraveling around her for many. Her indifference added insult to injury. As residents struggled to make ends meet, Henyard continued to fly first class, host lavish events, and employ personal glam squads, all funded by taxpayers. The public's patience ran thin. Yet she carried on. Seemingly untouchable, then came the twist that no one expected in a dramatic and unexpected move. Henyard voluntarily surrendered to the FBI. Her decision stunned the community and sent shockwaves through the media. Known for clinging tightly to her influence and image, her walk into federal custody marked a seismic shift in the narrative. Why would someone who appeared so determined to protect her power suddenly give it all up? Speculation ran wild. Some believe her surrender was part of a calculated legal strategy, perhaps a plea bargain in exchange for information about others involved in her alleged schemes. If true, it meant the investigation was far from over, and Henyard's inner circle could soon be implicated regardless of motive. Her surrender shattered the illusion of invincibility that had surrounded her. A woman who once stood above reproach was now facing a slate of serious federal charges, and the very real possibility of prison time for the town of Dalton. Her surrender marked a turning point. While the scars of her leadership would take years to heal, there was a renewed sense of hope that accountability might finally prevail. Still, the damage Henyard left behind is extensive. The town's finances remain in disarray. Public trust is broken, and the once thriving community is left struggling to make sense of how it all went so wrong. The investigation into Henyard's time in office has revealed a disturbing pattern of financial mismanagement, misappropriation of public funds, and personal enrichment at the expense of taxpayers. Among the most damning discoveries was a $7,700 personal shopping spree at stores like Target, Walgreens, and Wayfair, all charged to the town's budget. Luxury travel, personal glam teams, and unnecessary security costs drained the city's resources, while essential services suffered. Perhaps the most egregious revelation was the $561,000 payment used to pave the driveway of Henyard's mother's home. At a time when Dalton's finances were already on the brink, such an overt abuse of power sent shockwaves through the community, and that was only the beginning. Federal authorities are now delving deeper into Henyard's business dealings, campaign finances, and possible ties to political allies who may have benefited from her alleged corruption. What once looked like an impenetrable network of influence is now unraveling thread by thread, with whistleblowers like former police chief Carmen Carroll coming forward and investigators working to connect the dots. The full scope of misconduct is beginning to emerge as this web of corruption continues to be exposed. Dalton residents are left to confront the grim reality of what Henyard's leadership cost them, not just financially, but emotionally. Trust in the local government has been decimated, and the town's reputation is in tatters. For many, The betrayal is deeply personal, yet amid the chaos, there's a growing sense that justice may finally be catching up. Henyard's surrender was symbolic. It represented the fall of a leader who had spent years avoiding consequences. It was a sign, however small, that no one is above the law. Even so, the road to recovery for Dalton is long and uncertain. The town now faces a monumental task of rebuilding its financial infrastructure, restoring community trust, and reimagining a future free from the corruption that defined Henyard's tenure. The emotional toll is profound, and for many, forgiveness is far from reaching a bold, if controversial, move to help salvage the town's financial future. Dalton officials have enlisted the help of former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Hired at a staggering rate of $400 per hour, Lightfoot's role is to guide the town through this crisis and help navigate the legal and economic aftermath of Henyard's administration. The decision has sparked mixed reactions. While some welcome the expertise, others criticize the cost at a time when Dalton can ill afford it still. The town needs a way forward, and with Henyard out of power, there's at least space for new leadership to emerge. Leaders who value transparency, integrity, and service to the people above self-interest. Tiffany Henyard's rise and fall serves as a stark warning of what happens when power goes unchecked. Her administration, which promised progress and prosperity, instead brought division, debt, and disgrace. The scandal has underscored how easily public trust can be shattered and how difficult it is to rebuild once it's gone as federal prosecutors continue their work and the possibility of a broader conspiracy looms. Dalton residents are watching closely. Many are hopeful that Henyard's case will not only bring justice to their town, but serve as a precedent for others in positions of power. No one, regardless of title or influence, should be allowed to place personal gain above the public good for now. Dalton is left to pick up the pieces. And while Henyard's political career may be over, the impact of her decisions will linger for years. But in a community defined by resilience, the people of Dalton remain determined to rise again, stronger, wiser, and unwilling to be fooled again in the aftermath of power. Dalton struggles to rebuild in the wake of Tiffany Henyard's scandal. The fallout from former Mayor Tiffany Henyard's administration has left the town of Dalton reeling. As federal and state investigations into her conduct continue, the community is grappling with the emotional and financial wreckage of a leader they once believed in. What began as hopeful leadership has descended into a storm of scandal, betrayal, and mismanagement that now threatens the very foundation of Dalton's future residents who once placed their faith in Henyard now feel the sting of betrayal. The woman they trusted with their community's future has left it in ruins. As the town faces a nearly insurmountable deficit, the people of Dalton are desperate for answers, hoping that the justice system will bring closure and that those who enabled or participated in Henyard's alleged corruption will be held accountable despite the devastation. Henyard's scandal may also serve as a turning point. There is cautious hope that the investigation will not only bring justice, but also expose the deeper systemic issues that allowed her behavior to go unchecked for so long. With each new revelation, there's an opportunity to rebuild, this time with stronger, more transparent leadership. But the road to recovery will be long, marked by legal, financial, and emotional hurdles. The scale of Henyard's alleged misconduct is staggering. One of the most shocking details to surface was a single-day spending spree totaling $440,000 on Amazon, all charged to public funds. This brazen display of financial abuse stands as a symbol of the unchecked power she wielded while the town sank into crisis. As Dalton's financial situation spiraled, the Illinois State Comptroller was forced to halt $135,000 in emergency payments meant for residents, leaving many without critical resources during a time of need. Even after Henyard's resignation and her dramatic voluntary surrender to the FBI, the town continues to feel the weight of her actions. Lawsuits from former city employees have emerged, alleging wrongful termination for refusing to comply with unethical or illegal directives. These accusations point to a toxic and retaliatory work environment that thrived under Henyard's leadership, one where dissent was punished and loyalty to the mayor took precedence over integrity and accountability. But financial mismanagement is only part of the scandal. New, deeply disturbing allegations have surfaced, including claims of sexual misconduct, harassment, and intimidation against staff members. Former employees describe a workplace marred by fear and coercion, where Henyard allegedly used her power to exploit and silence those beneath her. These accusations have further darkened her public image and compounded the pain felt by a community already reeling from years of corruption. The people of Dalton, once captivated by Henyard's polished image and promises of reform, now watch in disbelief as that image crumbles. Seeing their former mayor in handcuffs has offered some residents a measure of relief, a sign that the days of impunity may finally be over. Yet for others, it raises more questions than answers. Why did she surrender voluntarily? Is she attempting to cut a deal? protect others involved, or manipulate the legal process in her favor. Her continued presence in office, even as charges mount, has become a point of contention and frustration. It suggests that the systems meant to safeguard the public from corruption may themselves be vulnerable to manipulation. Many residents believe Henyard has clung to her position not out of duty, but as a last attempt to wield influence and delay inevitable consequences. Despite her surrender, trust in the process remains fragile. The people of Dalton are watching closely, hoping that Henyard's actions and those of her associates will be fully exposed and prosecuted. But the damage is already done. Years of financial chaos, workplace abuse, and misused power have left deep scars on a town that once aspired to growth and stability. As federal authorities dig deeper, more names may emerge, and the full extent of Henyard's alleged network could be laid bare. Yet, the path forward is far from clear. The town must now rebuild its financial systems, restore community services, and work to repair the trust that was so thoroughly broken under Henyard's watch. Adding to the town's challenges is the decision to bring in former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot at $400 per hour to help navigate the cleanup. While some view her hiring as a necessary step toward professional oversight and recovery, others criticize the expense as yet another burden for a town already drowning in debt. Still, for all the setbacks, there is hope. Dalton's story, though marked by pain and betrayal, may serve as a powerful lesson about the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of transparency in local government. Residents are beginning to come together, not only to demand accountability, but to ensure this never happens again. Tiffany Henyard's fall from grace has left the community devastated, but it has also ignited a renewed determination among Dalton citizens. They know the road to recovery will be long and difficult, but they are no longer blind to the dangers that can emerge when power is abused. They are demanding better, and for the first time in years, there is a collective voice rising from the wreckage, calling for change. As the investigation continues and new revelations surface, the hope remains that justice will prevail. And while the damage caused by Henyard's actions may never be fully undone, Dalton is poised to begin the slow, necessary work of healing and rebuilding a future shaped not by greed, but by accountability, resilience, and community.